this is Kim with Mom's Creative Moments. Welcome back to my channel. Today is the beginning of our 12 days of holiday layouts, but rather than doing a layout today, I know this is probably a little bit misleading, I thought we would start out with a card because a lot of people do still like to send holiday greetings to their friends and family and loved ones, and this is a fun card. It does take a little bit of time because it's a pop-up card, which is super fun. But I'm going to show you how to do it so that if you want to put one together, you'll know and you can do as many as you like. Okay? And you know, I know this is a really busy time of year. Everyone's trying to gear up for the holidays. It's not even December yet and we're doing holiday cards, but you know, Thanksgiving is so last week. And even though it's not December yet, it's a perfect time to work on holiday cards. So I hope that you'll indulge me, and that because we need to get started in order to get all our 12 layouts in before Christmas. So let's check out my workspace and get started. All right, so here's my workspace for today. I have a number of things out here, but you're not going to need any special punches or anything for today. You will probably need an exacto knife, which I don't have out here, but we'll get there and I'll explain why and what your alternatives are and things like that when we get there. I have repositionable and permanent adhesive out, which you will probably need, and this is the sample card that I would like to make. And let me just clear off a little bit of this craziness underneath so you can see it a little bit more clearly on the white surface. Okay, so this is the front of the card, which is rather ordinary looking, I suppose. But when you open it up, you have presents, which is kind of fun. And they are three-dimensional, they do pop up. So that's kind of a cool, just a cool fun thing I thought would be neat to give you as an alternative to just a flat card. And because there's nothing on top that's going to stick up super high and get caught in the postman's machines, then this shouldn't cost you anything extra to mail, because there's nothing. This is popped up with foam squares, but you don't have to do that. And they're not very high, as you can see. You know, it's just barely off the page. So you know, you can do as you like, but this is just to get you started, right? To inspire you. Okay, so let me run through what we need to do. You're going to need some white cardstock for the inside. You're going to need some red cardstock for the outside. Okay, because the interior is cut on the white cardstock and then adhered to the red cardstock so that it folds in and pops up. You're going to need some miscellaneous plaid pieces, and I'm not sure what's going on with the puppy dog upstairs, but he seems like he's in distress. I hope he's not in distress. And then I found this really pretty holly paper at my local large craft store, so hopefully you have one of those nearby you. If you don't, then you might have some CM paper that's you want to use. That's a really pretty print. I went with something just a piece of decorative paper for the top because there's so much going on inside. I just felt like we really didn't need to do a lot to the front. So that's where this paper comes from. If you don't have plaid paper, Paper Studio has this great book of plaids that you can get. There are 20 designs in here, and you can see many of them here on the front cover, which gives you a huge variety of plaids to choose from if you like plaids. If you don't like plaids, choose a print that you happen to have, you know, remnants of in your scrap drawer, because you really are not going to need large pieces. They're very, very small. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, I'm going to just put this aside. You're going to need your trimmer. So I'm going to grab my CM trimmer, and I'm going to grab my white cardstock. So I'm going to cut my white cardstock into a piece that is 8 by 5. So I'm gonna just go ahead and cut it at 5 first. So I'm gonna cut it here at 5 inches. You won't need this piece, so set that aside. Grab your arm and swing it out, and then turn this horizontally so that you can cut that at 8 inches. Okay, so 8 inches is right there. You don't need this piece either, so set that over there. Then you are also going to need to cut a piece of red cardstock, and that is going to be your card base. So I'm going to have you cut that at 5.5 inches, just right about there. So 5.5 inches, you're going to turn it and you're going to cut it at 8.5 going horizontally. Okay, so that's the card base. The white cardstock is the interior. All right, and we are going to cut 3 pieces of plaid. These are going to be the presents on the inside. Okay, so you're going to need, let's see, I'm going to do 2 that are green, and the middle one's going to be this color. So the base gift is 1 3/4. Hang on one second. Nope, I take that back. So the three papers that go on the inside in here to represent each of these 3 gifts, the base, the top, and the middle. The largest one is going to be 3.5. So I'm going to go 3.5, and 3.5 by 1.5. So it'll be 3.5 by 1.5. So that's my largest gift. Then I need a piece, and I do my bottom gift and my top gift in the same paper. You don't have to do it that way. You can do them in 3 different pieces of paper that you have on hand, but just to make it easy on me, I do them in 3 different pieces, or in the top 2 the same, or the top and the bottom the same, and the one in the middle different. So 2.5 inches by 1 inch high is what this one needs to be. So I'm going to do, there's my 1 inch, and 2.5 goes here. Okay, so there's my top gift, my bottom gift, and this one's going to be the one in the middle. It's going to be 3 inches. So I'm going to go out 3 inches by 1 1/4. So I'm going to measure 1 1/4 on the right side of my trimmer, which is this grid line right here. And there's my middle gift. So the rest of my scraps I'm just setting aside over there so that they are out of the way. Okay, so I've got my base, I've got my inside, which we're going to get back to in just a minute. I need one more piece for the front, and that one is going to be, let me see if I wrote it down. It should be 5 1/4 by 4. Yeah, 5 1/4 by 4. So I'm going to go here to 4 inches and cut it long ways at 4 inches. You don't need the rest of that, so set it aside. And then I'm going to turn it horizontally and go to 5 1/4. Now these are the measurements so that you end up with a red edge around the outside. If you don't want a red edge around the outside, then you need to cut it at 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. All right, so we've got all of our pieces pretty much, except for embellishing and titles and things like that. So now what I'm going to do is go ahead and do some scoring, and then we're going to come back and do a couple more cuts. So if you have your scoring blade, you are going to need that. So I'm going to swing that arm in, grab my scoring blade from the back of my trimmer, put that in here. It's going to be somebody's job. If you've watched my channel before, you know it's somebody's job to remind me to put this back in as soon as possible so that I don't forget, because I'm notorious for forgetting. Okay, so we're going to we're going to score this red cardstock down the middle of the long side, so down the center here, and we're going to score it at 4 1/4 inches. 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 is your typical small card size. So be careful when you score. You don't want to push too hard. You just want to dent your paper so you can see a line. If you can see that line kind of as I move the paper back and forth, I just want a dent to help my paper know where to fold easier. Okay, so now there's my card base. Good to go when I'm ready to insert the center. Then this piece we are going to score at 4 inches, because remember this one is only 8 inches wide. So we're going to score that, and you can see my fold. It's a little harder to see on the white paper, but it's there. So I'm going to go ahead and fold that piece. And now I'm going to take my scoring blade out, and we're going to make some additional cuts into this piece. Don't put your scoring blade away though, you're going to need it again in just a minute. Okay, so I'm putting my straight blade back into my trimmer, and I'm going to take my folded edge towards the top. Okay, folded edge towards the top, and I'm going to measure 1/2 inch, which is the very first line of my grid pattern that's on my trimmer here. That's 1/2 inch. Okay, so I'm going to go to 1/2 inch. I'm going to start from the top and pull towards me, and I'm only going to cut down so that it cuts to 1 3/4. Now, this might be easier for you to find the 1 3/4 and push it towards the fold instead so that you don't go too far. And if that's the case, I totally understand. Let me show you how you're going to do that. You're going to bring, if you're using a CM 12-inch trimmer, this is the instructions I'm going to give you, okay? We know our housing is 2 inches this way. Our blade sits right in the middle at 1 inch. That allows me to measure using the edge of my housing, knowing I'm going to be 1 inch past the measure that I'm looking for. So I want my cut to be 1 3/4 inches between here and the fold that's at the top. And I'm going to come down here and put the edge of my housing at 2 3/4 and push down and slide towards the fold. That's going to allow my cut to start at 1 3/4. And actually it cut just a little beyond there, so that's okay if it cuts a little beyond there, not a big deal. Okay, so then I'm going to move my I'm going to flip this over actually. That's going to be easier for us to see. Okay, so now I've got my 1/2 inch right here. I'm going to put the cut that I just made. Here's the cut that I just made. I'm going to put that cut on the 1 1/2 inch mark on my trimmer. So 1 1/2 inches is right here. That's where my cut line is. Okay, I'm going to close back up my arm on my trimmer. Slide this again up to 2 3/4, or just shy of there, because I know that it actually cut too far before. Actually, I didn't go quite far enough. That's my bad. I was talking and I did it wrong. Okay, so I'm actually sliding this to 2 just below 2 3/4 so that I'm not going over, okay? Then I'm going to open it back up and I'm going to slide it over so that this cut line that I just made is at the 1 1/4 mark. So 1 1/4 is right here. I'm going to put the cut that I just made at 1 1/4, close my arm, and come up here and I'm going to cut it at 1 1/2 inches. So that means my housing is going to come up to 2 1/2, and I'm going to slide that forward, open it back up. Make sure you're pushing down really hard because you're going through 2 layers of cardstock as you're making these cuts. Push down really, really hard so you're going through both layers of the cardstock. Okay, so now I'm going to slide it over another inch. So I'm going to take my cut that I just made and put that at 1 inch. Close my arm up again, and I'm going to cut this at 1 1/4. So the edge of my housing is going to go to about 2 1/4 or just before that. And I'm going to push down and go towards my fold. Okay? So those are all of the cuts that we're going to make. You can see, can't see them super well, but that's a little bit better view that I've got all those cuts. They go all the way through both sides of my cardstock, okay? Now before you try to invert those cuts, we are going to actually score these where we want them to fold forward, all right? So I'm going to close this back up, put my scoring blade back in, okay, and now I'm going to go in and score each side of the fold for each present based on my center folding line. Okay, the center fold is what I'm going to use to measure by. So I'm going to I'm going to score the top present at 1 1/4 inches from the center fold. Okay, so I'm going to put my center fold line of my card at the 1 1/4 mark. Center fold is going at 1 1/4. Then I'm going to close this up. I'm going to use my line on the side of my trimmer, or side of my blade housing, this white line right here. And I'm going to line that white line up with where that first cut is, and I'm only going to bring it down to the next cut. Okay, so if it helps you, turn your trimmer sideways so you can see it better, and you're going to just score it down to the next cut line. Okay, then you're going to open up your trimmer and you're going to move that fold line, and you're going to come over to 1 1/2 inches. So 1 1/2 inches is here. There's my fold line. Closing this up. Now I'm going to score it from this second cut line down to the third cut line. Then I'm going to open it back up. I'm going to move my fold over to 1 3/4. So 1 3/4 is here, right here. I'm going to put my fold of my card at 1 3/4. Replace my arm, center my scoring blade on that third cut line, and score to the fourth cut line. Okay, not all the way to the bottom of the card, just to the fourth cut line. All right, now I'm going to do the same thing but on the other side. So I'm going to flip my card around, and I'm going to come down and use the lower shoulder and this. Let's see, can I do that? No, actually, we'll just do it right like this. We'll just measure it. We can measure it on the other side, I think. Yeah, we've got enough space. Okay, so again, we're going to come back up here. We're going to start with this first cut line, which is the short one on top, right? We're going to put our fold on the opposite side of the cutting line. and we're going to put that at 1 1/4 inches. So the fold of my card goes at 1 1/4 inches. I'm going to close my housing. I'm actually going to turn this around so I can see it better. Okay, so I'm going to close my housing. I'm going to come down here so that my line on the side of my housing is right there at that first cut line. All right, and I'm going to score from the top cut line to the next one down. So we're going 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So from 1 to 2, I'm scoring that at 1 1/4. Then I'm opening this up and I'm moving my fold line to 1 1/2 inches. Okay, putting my arm back down. Then I'm going to score from line number 2, cut line number 2 to cut line number 3. Then I'm going to open it back up and move my fold to 1 3/4, which is almost to the edge of my trimmer, way out here. You can't see it because of the bar. Let's see if I can show you. So you have marks right here that go to 1 3/4. It's the line right before the edge of your trimmer. So I'm just going to put my fold right there on that 1 3/4 line, close this up, and then I'm going to score it from the 3rd cut line to the 4th cut line. Don't worry if it goes slightly beyond when you're scoring. That's not a big deal, okay? All right, so now I have all of my lines cut. Actually, I hear somebody telling me I've got to replace my blade, so here I'm taking the scoring blade out, putting the straight blade back in, and I'm putting my scoring blade away so I don't lose track of it on my desk. Very important for me. It might not be as important for you, but my mind sometimes misplaces things. Okay, so now the important thing we're going to need to do is invert each one of these, and you can try to do all 3 of them at the same time, or you can just do one at a time. I have found the easiest thing to do is to put your finger in like this and then guide that fold on either side so it gets the idea that it's folding forward. Okay, like that. Then you're going to do the middle one, do the same thing, just kind of guide that paper so that it's folding in the place you want it to fold. Just like that. All right, so now you've got all 3 of them folding in instead of folding out. And so I bring them all in and I put all my edges together and just make sure I've got a really nice, tidy edge there folded, okay? You can use your all-purpose tool to put some pressure and just make sure that that's a nice, crisp fold. While you're at it, you can fold that center one down as well, okay? So now we've got our folds. Fantastic. Now, we are going to adhere our presents, and you can score these so that they fold a little easier. I think that works best, but if it's up to you. So I'm gonna actually do that so that you can see what that is. So sorry about that, those of you who were so proud of me because I remembered to put my blade back in. I'm gonna grab my scoring blade again and score all 3 of these, okay? So our first present was 3 1/2 by 1 1/2, so we're going to score this at 1 3/4 is going to be halfway. 1 3/4 is here, and I've got 1 3/4 here, so that's half. So I'm just going to put a quick scoring mark right there in the middle. Okay, so there's the base. The one in the middle is going to be scored at 1.5. And it's really easy to tell if you have your paper in the right place, because you should have 1.5 inches at this edge and 1.5 inches at this edge. Okay, and you're gonna just score it in the middle. Now this paper, as you might have seen, buckled when I went to score it, and I didn't put as much pressure on this one because this is designer paper, so it's thinner, whereas this one is from that book of plaid paper. It's a lot thicker, heavier weight paper, so I had to give it more to help it fold. All right, so we were at 1 3/4, so we went to 1.5. This one's going to be 1 1/4, and that's going to be our halfway mark. Again, you can double check it on both sides if you're concerned. Okay, and there is our second package. Now I want to show you this. So I scored this maybe just a little too hard, and you can see it has a white core inside. So now I have a white line. I don't know if you can see that very well. Let's see if I can focus this a little bit better. There. You can see the white line that is the core of this paper. This is not CM paper, so it doesn't have a solid core inside. It has a white core. And because I scored a little too hard, now you can see that breaking through. So if you have an issue with that, just be careful to make sure that whatever paper you're using, you're not scoring so hard that you're going to break through and end up with a line. This is a card. It's not something that's going to be sticking around for 100 years, so I'm not worried about it. But some people might be, so just in case you are one of those people, keep it in mind, okay? Again, I hear someone saying, change it, change it. So here we go. My cutting blade's going back in, my scoring blade's getting put away so I don't lose it. And there we go. Grab your trimmer. Grab your scrap of red that you had, and we're going to cut 3 strips of red. You'll notice I have a ribbon going up each side of each of these packages. And on this card, the ribbon for the package at the bottom is wider than the package at the top, almost twice as wide, and the one in the center is somewhere in the middle of that measurement. You can do it that way, or you can make the ribbon the same width all the way up. It's really up to you. I can't remember exactly why I did it that way. I think I just thought it would be a fun decorative thing. So I'm cutting this first one for the bottom gift at 1/4 inch. And this is a piece of paper that is about 3.5 inches this way. So 3.5 inches is enough for me to do both sides of my base piece. And if I can do my large piece with 1 strip of this, then I can do all the other pieces as well. The small gift is going to be just 1/8 of an inch of a ribbon. So that is just to the right side cutting line on my trimmer. That's 1/8 of an inch. And then the gift in the middle is a visual measurement on my part in between the right hand cutting line and the edge of my cutting mat. I have no idea what measurement that actually is. It's somewhere between 1/8 of an inch and 1/4 of an inch. And you can see, based on this, the 3 different sizes. Okay? So, again, you can do all 3 of them at 1/4 of an inch if you want. You can do all 3 of them at 1/8 of an inch if you want. If you like this middle measurement, do all 3 of them that way. Totally fine. Not a big deal. You're going to use your repositionable adhesive, and we're going to just put repositional adhesive all the way down. And this is my middle present, so I'm going to grab my middle present wrapping paper, And just to remind me, because it's hard to see, I'm going to put the fold on a line on my mat. That way I can kind of see or be reminded where that middle is, because it's hard to see on this plaid. And I'm just going to put that down right in the center of my package. And I'm going to grab my precision cutting scissors and trim it, and then put it down right in the center on the other side. So putting my fold line again on a grid line on my desktop. Just going to put that down to make that ribbon. Okay, so now my package is starting to look a little more like a package, right? All right, now I'm going to go ahead and do the small package. This one I can see the fold just a little bit better, so it's a little easier to find the middle. Try to make it straight. If it's not straight, you know what? I'm of a mind to say, don't worry about it. There are so many things that we worry about. Don't worry about it. It's really not critical. And if someone's going to look at your card and that's the first thing they're going to say is, oh, her ribbons are not straight, you know, I would have to say those people ought to make their own cards next year and send you one. Okay, so here we go. We're on our last package. Here's my fold where my fingernail is, which is going to help me gauge and make sure it's kind of as in the middle as possible. It is much easier to put the ribbons on now than after you adhere the wrapping paper to your white cardstock. So that's why we're doing it now. Much, much easier to do. So that it can be just nice and flat. You don't have to worry about all the things trying to pop up. Okay, we've got our 3 presents ready to go, where I'm going to go ahead and put adhesive. I'm going to put adhesive in every corner, then I'm also going to put adhesive across the center on both edges, so that as this bends and bends and bends and bends over time, it's not going to come off. And then what I'm going to do is match the folded edge in the middle and the top and bottom as best I can. Okay, so you want, as you're adhering your packages, make sure the fold in the center matches, and then just gently push down the adhesive on either end of your package. Okay, so we'll do, that's the base. Now we're going to do the middle package. Again, matching that center folded area, making sure the top and bottom cut edges are similar. You might have a slight variance. If you do, that is totally okay. Just make sure the fold in the center matches. All will be well, trust me. Of course, if it's too long out here, you might have a problem, but if it's short, it's not a big deal. Okay, so you can fold it and just double check to make sure that all is well. That looks pretty good to me. So we're going to do this last one. And this last one, I'm just going to do a line of adhesive on either edge and one down the center. I think I'm going to take, since this is the one that that I cut a little, or I folded just my scoring blade, cut into the top layer of the paper just a little bit farther than I wanted. I think what I'm going to do is put the edge that you can see towards the bottom of my present, then it'll be a little less noticeable. And I'm going to, this can be a little bit tricky if you're not careful. So folded edge to folded edge in the center, straight edges, straight edges, and ends of the pattern paper. Okay, there. Now I have my presents, but you'll notice on this one there is a cut bow at the top. Do you see? Do you see how we have a bow cut in here? So that I do with an exacto knife. If you don't want to do a bow, you don't have to, but I just think a bow is kind of a nice finishing touch, and because this red ribbon is the same color as our base, you're going to get the effect of that ribbon right there. So I'm going to pull out my exacto knife and I'll show you how it's done. There's really no way for me to give you measurements on this. You just kind of have to freehand it. But let me fold this out so you can see it better. You're going to start about 1/8 of an inch from the center fold and cut at an angle until you're roughly 1/4 of an inch from the top right here. Then start at about 1/4 of an inch from the fold again down here at that cut edge, and you're going to angle out just a little bit more and bring that cut mark so that it's similar. Okay, then you're going to connect those to make your one side of the bow. It's really not too terribly hard. It's just three cuts on each side, but some people are, you know, exacto knives make them nervous. So this one you're going to want to do a similar way, but really it is okay if your angles are maybe slightly different or higher or lower. It really is okay to do that. Okay, and then I'm going to connect these two just to make that cutout. You see that? All right. So now what we're going to do is adhere this to our base. So I'm going to use my permanent adhesive. I'm going to do some in each corner, some down, oops, that's probably more than I needed, but that's all right. Some down each side, so each corner, each short side. Then I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit in the center at the folding mark on the top and the bottom. It's a little trickier to do on the top because of the cut areas for the bow that we just did. These cut areas for the bow that we just did, we're going to add some repositionable adhesive to. And the reason we do that is so that they will stay down even when the rest of the card is folding. You don't want this part to fold up. Okay, so we're just going to use our repositionable dots to add adhesive to that area. I don't know if you can see that. Let's see if I can refocus it so you can see that better. So you can kind of see where the dots are. And then I've got my adhesive marked around. If you would like to, you can go ahead and add just a little bit of adhesive to the center right beside that center package. That will help the center here stay down while your other pieces fold up. Then what you're going to do is line this up, line up the fold in the middle with the fold on the red card. Try to center it. Mine's not centering for some reason. There, that's better. Okay, center that center fold and push down your adhesive so that everything is happy there. Okay, then you're gonna, what I would do, rather than pushing down your adhesive on the outside edges, I would fold the center together and push the whole thing down. Okay, and then everything is attached and good to go in the middle of your card. All right, now we also need to get this one put on the front, so some quick adhesive in 3 spots down the long side of your decorative paper that's going to go on the front, and then just center that with about 1/8 of an inch all the way around. Get that adhered on, then that's good to go. You'll notice I have it says Merry Christmas as kind of a banner across the bottom, and then a little embellishment. You can use anything you'd like. Just grab a scrap of white cardstock and write your greeting on it and adhere it, or you can use a computer program to create your own titles like this, or you can use a pen, like I was saying, and write your own. It's up to you. But this is how I create titles for my cards. I just use a Microsoft Word program and print them onto cardstock. Okay, then what I'm going to do is use my trimmer to trim off one of these titles. And I'm going to trim it so that it's fairly close, but not right on top of the printed words. Which is a little bit tricky because Joy has that Y that hangs down, so just make sure if you're using a word that has a letter that goes below the writing line that you allow space for those letters as well. Keep your margins on both sides the same as whatever you choose for your top and your bottom, so that it all looks nice and even. And try really hard to make sure that your lines are straight. You can print these out on colored cardstock if you want, instead of white. You can get really fancy dancy, as my kids would say, with it. It's up to you. So I'm just going to add this to the base right here, about 1/4 of an inch up from my printed paper, and then add just a very quick little embellishment. Let's see, we could add one of these little snowmen. Peace and joy. Snowmen always remind me of peace because they always are outside in the snow. I don't have another snowman to add to him so that he's not alone. I only have another one that's exactly the same, so that's okay. We will go ahead and add this guy in. And you don't have to get fancy because your inside is fancy, right? So we're just going to add this little snowman, and now he's blue and everything else is green and red, but you know what I mean. If you have something that matches better, like this one matched so perfectly, go with that. But anyway, those are your gifts for Christmas. You can write your love notes on the side, a sweet note for your family and wishing them well, and you are good to go for Christmas. All right, I hope this was fun and enjoyable and not too terribly tedious for you, and something, I hope it's something that you'll use. I really think it will surprise your friends and family when they open up a card that you made that's a pop-up. Super fun. Thanks so much for joining me. I wish you a happy day preparing for our merriest of merry holidays this year. And until next time, I hope you have many more creative moments. Have a great day.